announcements. This is the last cabinet for a couple of our well-kept faces, Bob McCulloch and Doc Grieve. I can hardly believe it. It's just coming this quickly. Just the two of you separately and together made such a good contribution to this council. Just like to thank you both for that. And I've been to say about that in a week of the days to come. And it's Tracy Murray's first day. I'm under at cabinet. Welcome. Okay, just get to the meetings. If Christine can do this today.
Thanks, Chair. So I have Councillor Douglas Reid.
Yep.
Councillor Jim McMahon.
Yep.
Councillor John McGee.
Yep.
Councillor Tom Cook.
Yeah.
Councillor Ian Linton.
Yeah.
Councillor Fiona Campbell.
Yeah, thanks.
Councillor Claire Maitland.
Here.
Councillor Claire Leach.
Yeah.
Councillor Neil McGee.
Yeah.
Councillor Jim Roberts. No. Councillor Jackie Todd.
Apologies.
Apologies from Councillor Todd. Councillor Jim Roberts. No, not yet. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Christine. Okay, go over now to do any declarations of interest. Don't know if there's anything that should be here today.
Yeah.
Tom,
Yeah.
Councillor Cook.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, an advisor to the CAB in relation to item 14 on the agenda, the large grants, but it's not significant, but I need to read.
That's fine.
Okay, and I think maybe for me, Celebrate Kilmarnock, I'm on the board of that. I think that's in the grants, and Claire as well, Claire Maitland.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Neil.
Neil?
I think I might have been involved in third sector contracts with ACDI, do you? I'm not certain, but I think we will be.
Thanks, Neil. We'll take a note of that.
Right.
Okay, I think that's all the major ones that I can recollect. If there's any that comes up, we'll take a note of them as well. But it's always good to try and get these out at the start. We're supposed to do. Okay, we've got into the business for the day, and the first one is item 2, the policy review schedule. And who's Amanda?
Thanks, Chair. Morning, members. The purpose of this report is to recommend to Cabinet proposed changes for the following policies, which are laid out in paragraphs 6 policies in total, namely maternity, adoption, paternity and shared parental leave, support and performance at work, disciplinary, career break scheme, deployment career pathways policy and the grievance policy. The background is laid out in paragraphs 3 through to 8, which is the standard background in relation to the policy review schedule. The main report starts at paragraph 9, firstly with an annual desktop review carried out for the maternity, adoption, paternity and shared parental leave. And there's 3 changes within it. One is to add a link and other for further clarification and keeping in touch days, and also then noting that all appendices have been updated to be completed electronically. Support and performance at work policy, again an annual desktop review, and 2 points within it. 1, to clarify that it does not apply to teaching employees, and 2, an update in the job titles and services following the council restructure. Third policy, disciplinary policy, again a desktop review. And you'll note several bullet points there, mainly clarification and following on from good practice and learning as we went along. So just clarity about recording, CCTV, linking back to support and performance at work policy, and confirming that where the facts are not in dispute, there's no requirement for an investigation to be concluded. Also updating for the council structure and links back to the website. The career break policy was a full review, and there's several points been updated there again, mainly, as I say, administrative and management responsibilities, clearly clarifying the eligibility criteria and moving some paragraphs around to make it more streamlined. It also amends the clarification and non-payment of allowances whilst in career break and adds a paragraph 11.2. The deployment and career pathways policy is an annual desktop review, and it adds links to the Council Support and Performance Policy and updates the Council's management structure. The sixth policy is the grievance policy, which again was a full review, but there is no changes to that policy. Human resource implications are set out in paragraphs 1, 2 and 9 of the report. Qualities impacts assessments have been carried out in respect to the policies, and there's no requirement for any changes to be made to the previous EIAs in relation to the policies listed. There are no financial risk or net zero implications, and the recommendations are laid out in paragraph 2, and happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Amanda. Any comments or questions for Amanda? I think it's a straightforward report. Just go straight to recommendations. Can we agree to recommendations? Okay, thanks. Okay, next item is the extension of third sector contracts, children and young people's services. I've got Charles Rocks for this.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning, members. So this is the update and continuation of the third sector contracts for children and young people services. The purpose of this report is to provide an update on the progress of 5 negotiated contracts through the East Ayrshire Health and Social Care Partnership. And the report will also provide an update on the joint contract with North Ayrshire Health and Social Care Partnership for Break the Silence. To summarise, the report details the progress of the negotiations that are taking place with these contracts, and also provide interim conclusions and recommendations that will be presented to the IJB. Members will be aware that most of our commission services have a waiting list, which really indicates demand for these services. This demand through community vulnerabilities cannot be met by the existing statutory services within children and families. Our commission services have a really positive effect on the lives of those who use them, and we continue to improve the commission services we provide and work in partnership with the families we work with to help design that. Impact of COVID-19 over the last 2 years has been significant on commission services, being able to deliver the supports East Ayrshire families the way we normally do. And we're looking to try and adapt and respond to some of this need in a more flexible way. We'll note from the report 4 of our commission services are due to come to the end of their contract on the 31st of March 2022. These include Barnado's Children and Family Service, Who Cares Scotland, Action for Children, Lisa Lana, and Action for Children Turning the Corner. What I would just highlight is the significant consultation is already taking place with children and families who use our services, and this will continue through our best values service review, particularly around Action for Children and for Lisa Lana. The report does give an update on the progress of the contract, and these are highlighted in paragraphs 17 to 44 in the report. The contracts were moving in the last 1+ year extension of their core funding, and the recommendation is to approve the updates as highlighted. The one contract negotiation I probably would highlight is the Action for Children and Lisa Lana, as within the report I've highlighted that this has got potential financial implications, and negotiations are ongoing with that just now as the current contract ends on the 31st of March 2022. In regards to the sort of investment commission with Lisa Lana and Action for Children, we are being part of a best value service review. There's a huge amount of consultation going on with families and with children who are using that service, and some of that has been really positive, with some really good well thought out ideas and views from families themselves and how they would like to see that service being adapted for the future. There are no specific human resource implications contained with the report. It highlights our legislative duties within the Equality Act for equality implications, and there are no legal implications that we can note. And the recommendations, Chair, are set out in paragraph 3 for members to review, and happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Charles. Members, any comments or questions? John?
I just, if the paragraph 44, just want was wondering if we could get an example of how the £39,000 helped reduce the waiting list. Thank you.
Thanks. So this was to support additional capacity within the service itself. So it was highlighted that there was an increased waiting list through that period of time, and some of that was deemed to be really unacceptable and inappropriate given the level of complexity for those requiring that service. And that's actually improved some of that waiting time. Councillor, thank you.
Claire?
That's great, thanks, Chair Charles. It's nice to see you, albeit virtually. You've probably already answered my question through what you've said already. I think we all know how amazing what these organisations do. Every single one of them across the entire spectrum, what they do with our children and young people and our service users, absolutely fantastic. I suppose just, in paragraph 12 it states there's widespread recognition that our communities know best what they need. I think long gone are the days that, councils and other organisations are speaking on behalf of people, be it communities or young folk. Often what they tell us they need and what we think they need are very different things. So really good to see that being written down and good for going forward, Charles. Thanks.
Thanks, Claire. Charles, could you maybe come back again into terms of Councillor McGee's question there? Just, it's not exactly clear, just how the spike was decreased. Just it'd be helpful to just have an indication what the rough approximate figures are, and the scale of the problem, if you can.
Chair, I don't have the actual details for the waiting list at that time. I mean, it's something I can come back to Councillor McGee on it and get some additional detail if that's required.
That'd be very helpful. Maybe just get some directly for the organisation, Charles, if you can. That'd be. I know they probably collate these things. Okay, thanks. Anyone else? Okay, can we go to recommendations? Can we agree on recommendations? Fine. And into item 4 now, which is the continuation of contractual arrangements with Alzheimer's Scotland. And Eric, I believe, has got this report. Eric Sutherland.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, unfortunately, my camera seems to have frozen. Apologies for that. Morning, members. This report seeks Cabinet approval to continue arrangements with Alzheimer's Scotland to 31st of March 2023. The report relates to the whole range of services provided through Alzheimer's Scotland. Members will be aware of many of these, including the Dementia Resource Centre, specific dementia information and advice, peer support, crucial links to community resources and activities, a range of complementary therapies, as well as short breaks for carers, and the real critical thing for me in post-diagnostic support, and more recently in digital delivery methods. In paragraph 7, the report notes that the pandemic has had an impact on the review of this contract, in particular in this case where, due to the vulnerability of supported people, Alzheimer's Scotland took the decision to suspend face-to-face provision and deliver this in alternative virtual ways. Alongside that, there's been recent confirmation of further funding for post-diagnostic support from Scottish Government, and we would want to shape with delivery partners what that looks like in East Ayrshire. From paragraphs 8 through to 10, the report highlights that the current contract with Alzheimer's Scotland ends on the 31st of March 2022. There are no extension options within the current contract, and the report is seeking to maintain current arrangements with immediate implementation to the end of March 2023 with Cabinet's approval. Subsequent to that, we would be undertaking a comprehensive review and evaluation and negotiating a new contract over that period. The report sets all of this in the context of the IJB strategic plan at paragraphs 12 and within the new partnership provider statement at paragraph 14. And those two documents will very much provide the basis for those negotiations. The implications for supported people and unpaid carers are set out at paragraph 17, and that's particularly in relation to the post-diagnostic support 5 pillars. Financial implications are detailed at paragraph 19 and highlight to members that the total value of the contract is 123,897 and an additional ring-fenced PDS amount is 83,000 confirmed by SG. Contract review will be undertaken in line with best value and fair work principles as stated at paragraph 22. New methods of delivery, including the use of digital platforms to deliver some aspects of the service, do contribute to transformation and also to net zero, and those are noted there at paragraphs 25 and 27. A report was presented to IJB meeting on the 23rd of March and was agreed in reference to paragraph 2 of the report, and the recommendations to Cabinet are at paragraph 3, and that's to receive the IJB direction, agree to the extension to the 31st of March and implement that decision ahead of any potential call-in to allow for continuity of service and otherwise note. Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Thanks very much, Eric. I think there's hardly a family that hasn't been recently, had the scourge of Alzheimer's, and we all know, this seems to be a growing illness, and good to give this a bit of support. Jim.
Thanks, Chair. Absolutely delighted to support this. I've worked with Alzheimer's Scotland closely over the last 5 years. Some of the work they're doing, especially helping me in the memory garden and coming up and run about the memory dog that bring with them, setting up organisations within communities as well. So delighted to go ahead with this.
Thanks, Jim. Tom?
Thanks, Chair. No, I mean, I fully support the work that they're doing. I mean, this is, as you say yourself, seems to be a growing problem in our communities. But I'm just looking for a bit of clarification around the recommendation number 2, where it says we agree to extend it for a further year, subject to prior approval for funding agreed by the IJB. What does that actually mean? Maybe explain.
Eric first.
Yeah, I think it's a standard recommendation in the contractual reports, Councillor Cook, in terms of the IJB approving this in terms of the direction that comes to Cabinet.
So I'm not just clear on that. So is it IJB funding or is it council funding? Is it coming from the funding that council have given to the IJB, or is this additional funding? That's all I'm looking for.
Sorry, Councillor Cook, it's coming from funding that council give to the IJB, and it's then coming back to us seeking to commission that through council.
That's fine. No, that was to clarify the point I was looking for. Thanks.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah. Okay. With that, can we agree the recommendations? Okay. On to item 5 now, and that's request to extend the contract for the duplicate payment and fraud prevention software. Joe.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to seek Cabinet approval to extend the existing software agreement with Fiscal Technologies in line with the Council standing orders relating to contracts, and for that extension to take a 3-year period up to March 2025. The piece of software itself, members, is an intrinsic part of our anti-fraud strategy. It sits within our creditors payment system, and it scans payment files before they're released and carries out a number of checks and a number of industry standard checks too. As noted at paragraph 6, it's become an embedded anti-fraud tool within our corporate financial systems, and you can see over the page in terms of the backstory to some of the stats nationally in terms of erroneous creditors payments. But you can see that in terms of the council itself, that also our services play a vital role in the detection and prevention of fraud, and this is a further balance to that and a further tool to that process. As it said, it does sit within our creditors payment system, and it interfaces directly with that system. Table at paragraph 12 gives details of just some of the work that's been done on the over 600,000 invoices that were checked by this system, and it, as noted, it highlights some of the actions that are required to take. The work itself is a fundamental part of the finance core systems. It's a system as well that is augmented by the work of internal audit and by the audit team who regularly review creditors payments. The report itself asks members to approve the extension. The cost that is noted at paragraph 18 noting that it's £54,000 a year, and that is within a budget within finance and ICT. And Chair, happy to stop there and take any questions.
Thanks, Joe. A good report. I attended a conference recently and heard about a number of authorities in England and in Wales that had been subject to significant fraud, and I think it's right that we give ourselves the best preparation for these kind of eventualities. Any comments? Anybody? No, can we go straight to recommendations? Page 21, can we agree recommendations? Okay, that's great. Okay, item 6, it's that time of year again. Provision of gull control service in East Ayrshire. I think we kind of lost them during the COVID, but I think they're coming back. Bill Gilchrist, over to you. Stuart, over to you.
Thanks, Chair. Happy to stand in, and Billy's inability to get on this morning.
No, apologies, Chair.
Great, save the bell. Thanks.
Yes, apologies. I was halfway through my spiel without realising that my microphone was in mute, so for that I do apologise. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. The purpose of this report is to seek Cabinet approval for the continued engagement of an external contractor to deal with gulls in the East Ayrshire area. This contract is initially intended to run from the 1st of April 2022 to the 31st of March 2025, with the option to extend for a further 2 one-year extensions. I've highlighted at paragraph 3, item 2, that there is a total projected expenditure of up to £180,000 over the lifetime of the contract. This figure has been arrived at to encompass any unforeseen work which might need to be done on a non-recurring basis. For the last 9 years, we have engaged a contractor to do this work, and Councillor McMahon asked at the pre-agenda for numbers of eggs which have been removed by the contractor on an annual basis, and I can advise Cabinet that the average on an annual basis of number of eggs removed would be between 800 and 900. Obviously, the total level of expenditure has brought us to the stage where we're required to seek Cabinet approval for this work. I cannot advise Cabinet that there are no policy or community planning implications, legal implications, human resources implications, or equality impact implications. However, I have highlighted at paragraph 19 in the report that whilst the Council have no legal duty to deal with urban gulls within its area, there is a perception amongst the public that we do have such a legal duty, and to fail to do anything, I would suggest, would be detrimental to the Council's reputation, and it's certainly one of these sort of matters which, if we don't do anything, we are perceived as being sort of derelict in our duty. So I would just draw the committee's attention to the recommendations and in paragraph 3, and would ask the committee to approve this report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Billy. No, I think you're absolutely right to highlight the fact that it's not a statutory duty, but in terms of the quality of life for people, it's something that we want to actually do. But you know, and anecdotally, I know that during the COVID, it was quite visible that there was less gulls going about, and probably no small fact due to the carry-out shops and the folk coming out and spurring the contents in the pavement. You know, the food source obviously didn't attract the gulls in the numbers that they normally do, which just goes to show that human beings are probably the problem here rather than the gulls themselves. You know, helping to feed the gulls, and we still see some people actually feeding the gulls as a matter of course, and that's something we would ask the public not to do. What kind of stuff are we doing in terms of public engagement as well, Billy? We get that message out there as well?
I would have to admit, Chair, that no, as yet we haven't, but certainly we would intend to start issuing Granicus updates on the level of work that the contractor is doing to highlight particular problem areas. As you quite rightly say, around takeaways, for example, it has been a particular problem where the public discard their waste containers and provide a ready food source for gulls. So we would certainly hope to increase the public awareness by doing things like Granicus, perhaps photo opportunities with members of the council, anything really which we can publicise the work that's been done and getting the public's assistance to try to control this issue.
Thanks, Billy. Jim?
Thanks again, and thanks for getting back to me with that number, Billy. I think it's important. I tell you, we replace these eggs we're removing with dummy eggs, which would probably stop another 800 or 900 being laid as well. Would that be right?
That's absolutely correct. Yeah, the gull behaviour is such that if we simply remove the eggs, the birds will breed again and lay a fresh clutch of eggs. So by replacing these eggs, the birds are essentially fooled into thinking they're continuing to allow these eggs to develop. So yes, you're absolutely right, Councillor. The replacement of the natural egg with a dummy egg certainly does help to control the population.
Okay, thanks, Billy. Claire and John.
Thanks. Billy, I was involved last year with a case at Rugby Park, and Rugby Park have actually taken on the responsibility to help get rid of the gulls. And we've also seen in Morrison's that they have the gull display, well, I call it displacement because they displace it, but they have the barriers up to stop the gulls resting on the nest. Now,
Yes.
What happened with Rugby Park and the supermarket was it just displaced it even further into what I call Seagull Central, which some of us in this room live in. So is there anything that we can do as individuals when the gulls arrive at our doorstep? Thank you.
Absolutely, Councillor. I think as has already been highlighted by Chair, it's proper storage of waste before it goes for disposal. We have to the essential thing really is to deny these birds a food source. And whilst it would be ideal if every property could carry out proofing measures such as chicken wire around chimney heads and that kind of thing, that's really not a practical option. So really, the principal factor is to deny a food source. And if we can do that both domestically and in the commercial setting, that would certainly help to reduce numbers.
Thanks, Billy. John?
Hi, thanks for that report, and I agree with the recommendations. Just wanted to ask, during the pandemic, even you went to Largs, when all the food shops were shut, there were hardly a gull in sight. And I just wonder, in East Ayrshire, have we ever fined them for feeding gulls? You see the signs up at places like Largs. And my other question is, what happens if you're maybe further out, Kilmarnock Town Centre, where you're in villages where there's significant increase in the number of gulls? Do we go to these areas as well? Thank you.
Firstly, Councillor, in terms of fining people for feeding gulls, it's not an offence other than if the council were to create bylaws restricting that practice, at which point we could potentially fine people for feeding gulls. I know certainly in other areas of the council, this has been council areas, particularly in the northwest of England, this has been considered to be antisocial behaviour and dealt with as such. Certainly, turning to your second point, if we do have reports of increased gull populations in other areas of East Ayrshire, we would direct the gull contractor to deal with those as well. As I've said in my report, yes, there is a concentration of gulls within Kilmarnock, but the gull contractor covers every area of East Ayrshire and is required in terms of his existing arrangement to visit these areas, engage populations and deal with them where he finds as an issue.
Thanks, Billy. Who's next? Tom Cook. Councillor Cook.
Yep. Thanks, Chair. It's just in relation to the feeding of the gulls and taking away their food source. I mean, I live near one of the big school campuses, and it was noticeable during the COVID situation where the school was closed that the gulls just all disappeared. But since the school's opened, they're back again. So I think we need to get the message across to the schools, to the pupils, that throwing away their lunchtime sandwiches and things around the school is just unacceptable, and that's what's causing the problem. So it's just all part of the prevention, and I think as was touched on earlier, like by the leader himself, you know, we need to get the publicity out about, you know, taking away the food sources.
Yeah. Chair, through you, if I can just respond to Councillor Cook's comments. We are, through the Corporate Enforcement Unit, part of my team, engaging with schools and the campus police to deliver initiatives, restorative justice campaigns in several of the schools, and we would hope to extend that through all of the secondary schools in the area, whereby any pupils who are caught littering are served with a fixed penalty with the option to take part in a litter pick, at which point the fixed penalty would be withdrawn. So we are, through that, already engaging with the schools actively to, you know, get the message across that dropping litter is in itself a problem, but obviously has the consequence of attracting species such as, you know, normal sort of rodents, rats, mice and gulls, of course.
No, thanks, Don.
Yes, thanks. Because Jim Roberts, did you say?
He's joined the meeting.
Oh, he joined the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Okay, anyone else? Okay, can we go to recommendations and agree recommendations in paragraph 3? Okay, great, thanks. And on to item 7, which is the annual procurement strategy, and Leslie McLean should be presenting this. Leslie.
Good morning, Chair, members. The purpose of this report is to present to members the Council's annual procurement strategy for the coming financial year. Paragraphs 3 and 4 set out the statutory legislative framework and duties placed on our public body in relation to all of our procurement activities, with the Procurement Reform Act mandating the requirement for the publication of a procurement strategy. As such, the strategy presented has been informed by the Scottish Government statutory guidance. It was realigned last year to reflect a revised national performance framework outcomes to ensure that the Council's procurement-related activities focused on the delivery of sustainable and inclusive growth. Following review for this coming financial year, the following sections of the strategy, as detailed within paragraph 6, have been updated. So section 4 has been updated to reflect the Council's aspirations in regards to the wider Ayrshire regional economic priorities. This identifies the impacts and profound effects the pandemic has had on our local and national economy. Therefore, at the heart of our strategy for this coming year is our shared ambition to tackle inequality and enhance the well-being of our communities. Our procurement activities in particular will be delivered through a community wealth building lens, with a key focus and drive to keep our spend local. Obviously, that has to be done in context of the legislative framework in which we currently operate. And as part of that, we are working to encourage local employment, to make our land and buildings work better for our communities, and to assist in the development of our local supply chain partners. In terms of section 5 of the strategy, that has also been updated to reflect and recognise the requirement for our client services to be more proactive and engaged in the development of our individual commodity strategies for our regulated procurement activities, ensuring that any appointed contract administrators fully consider requirements which address our strategic priorities for the Council and also at a national priority level, namely to review options for carbon and sustainability reductions, eradicating inequalities by working and supporting our local businesses, to ensure community benefits and fair working practices are being monitored and measured and recorded, and to ensure that all of our contracts deliver best value to our council and to our communities. In terms of section 6 of the strategy, our spend and finance, our spend information has been incorporated, and it shows a total for the departmental spend for last financial year. The updated charts have been incorporated to reflect our contracted spend across the council. You'll notice that there's a typo in one of the charts. It's actually showing a date of 2029, and that should read 2019. So that date will be updated prior to publication on the council's website. And we do continue to monitor and analyse the spend every quarter, to obviously look at how we improve opportunities for local businesses, and again with that community lens approach for the community wealth building agenda.
It is recognised that successful delivery of the strategy will require commitment from and the support of all officers and members who influence procurement activity. The outcomes will contribute to social, economic and environmental development with an increased focus on excellent service delivery, value for money, a citizen-centric procurement approach and organisational excellence. There's 2 attached appendices included within the report. This includes an update on last year's action plan, and it is also a copy of the action plan for this coming financial year. There are no further implications associated with the report, and the recommendations for the report are noted at paragraph 2. And I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much for that, Leslie. Excellent report. There's some really interesting reading in the appendices there. Members, do you have any questions or comments? Jim Roberts.
Yeah, thanks very much, Dougie. Sorry about getting on this morning. Folks had some IT problems, hopefully now sorted. Morning, Leslie. Thanks very much for your report. I don't have any problems with the report. What I am wondering, I don't know whether you can give me an answer to this, bearing in mind the situation in Ukraine. You know, we've got a lot of restrictions been placed on buying goods, etc., from Russia. Can you give us any guarantee, or can you give us any assurance that we will not be buying any goods from Russia, bearing in mind what's happening in Ukraine at the present moment?
Obviously can't give you any guarantees at this stage, Councillor Roberts. What I can advise members today is that we have actually issued a communication out to all of our contracted suppliers. That went out about 2 weeks ago, just to ask about supply chain pressures, market pressures. Obviously, we're still dealing with the impact of the pandemic, along with the war in Ukraine at the moment. So that is having a huge impact across the supply chain, across the market, across recruitment. It's having a massive impact everywhere, Councillor. So we have put that communication out, and we are starting to get communications back in from the supply chain just to see where these pressures are. On top of that, the Scottish Government and our Centre of Expertise, Scotland Excel, have also issued a communication out to the market, in particular focusing on the war in Ukraine, just to see, obviously, just making sure that our first tier, second tier and third tier supply chain partners are not involved in any sort of procurement activity in supply chain. They're trying to obviously mitigate the supply chain pressures or anything coming from Russia. So that's the only assurance I can give you just now, that we are taking action. But it's how we monitor and measure that, Councillor. That's a problematic area for us. But we can only do what we can do in terms of our consultation and our engagement with government colleagues.
Thanks very much for that, Leslie. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Anyone else? No, can we just go to recommendations there and agree recommendations in paragraph 2? Okay. Now we go to item 8, which is the East Ayrshire gift card.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to update members on the progress of the East Ayrshire gift card and proposed changes to the operating arrangements. The background to the establishment of the East Ayrshire gift card, which was to support local economy, and the role that supporting the support from the business associations played in developing the card, are set out in paragraphs 3 to 5. Paragraph 6 to 10 outlines the work that has taken place to establish the card since it was first introduced in August 2020. The number of businesses signed up has risen from 80 to over 200. And this is the result of great partnership working with the business associations and the hard work of the team. As set out in paragraphs 11 and 12 of the report, the gift card can be used in one of 3 ways, and that's through personal and individual gifting, company rewards, or through community disbursement. This approach is also now starting to be reflected nationally in the rollout of the Love Local card, which has been taken forward by Scotland's Towns Partnership. In paragraph 12, the table shows the breakdown of spend within each of the categories, and we're starting to see an increase in annual spend on the personal individual gifting and company rewards. Over the past year, there's been a 46% increase in the number of people purchasing the gift cards and a 40% rise in corporate rewards by local companies. The table also outlines the community disbursement of the cards through the Christmas and spring campaigns. This not only supported local people, but also sent a positive message to local businesses that the council was supporting the local economy and community wealth building. I would specifically like to highlight paragraphs 14 and 15 of the report. It had been the intention to pass the gift card over to the Kilmarnock Business Association after year 2. However, as they've recently taken over Shop Happy platform in partnership with the Kilmarnock Business Association, they don't have the capacity at this time to take it on. Therefore, it is recommended that East Ayrshire Council retain the current contract for the gift card up until August 2023. We will then work with colleagues in procurement and the business associations to fully develop a commodity strategy for a future tender opportunity, taking into account developments that are taking place nationally with Scotland's Towns Partnership. Paragraph 16 to 22 outlines the community disbursement through the Christmas and spring campaigns, and the details of the values of these are contained in paragraphs 16 and 17. We can see in paragraph 18 that 81% of the value of the Christmas cards have been redeemed in local businesses and 83% of the spring cards have been redeemed. Whilst we do not track individual spends on the cards, we do know that 85% of the total spends have been used to purchase food and clothing. As outlined in paragraph 19, we have highlighted the value of the cards that have still to be redeemed. The balances on the Christmas cards currently stands at just over 15,000 and just over 37,000 for the spring campaign. We have regularly targeted people and put out social media posts to encourage spend, and we have arranged 3-month extensions for both of the cards, allowing them to be spent. As outlined in paragraph 22, we have made arrangements with MyConnex to have any unspent balances on the community disbursement returned to the council. Any unspent balances from the Christmas cards will be returned next month, and any unspent balances on the spring cards will be returned in July. And we'll work with finance on how best to redistribute any balances that come back in order to support our communities. As previously highlighted, the development of these Ayrshire gift cards has been of interest to local authorities, other local authorities and to Scottish Town Partnership, who are supporting the rollout of the national scheme. And paragraphs 23 to 25 outlines our links with them. And we were delighted last year that we got the Judges Special Award for the Scotland Love Local Award, recognising the work that we've undertaken in East Ayrshire. The legal, HR and financial implications are set out in paragraphs 26-27, and we will work with procurement to review the existing contracts and any further contract arrangements, and we'll also work with finance to redistribute the money that we spoke about and also look at the budget for the final year of the contract. There are no equality issues arising from the report, and we just highlight it, paragraph 31, in terms of risks. There are no inherent risks to the council as arrangements are in place to recover unspent monies for community disbursement, and we'll work with procurement to review the contract. Chair, recommendations of the report are set out in paragraph 2, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Dot. No, I think this has been a tremendous innovation, and I know the two business associations and other local businesses are right behind this, because it falls in with our community wealth building strategy, and it helps to circulate the money in the East Ayrshire economy, and we can track it globally, and we know that it's certainly not been abused in any kind of form that was a concern at the start, and just I think it's something that's been copied elsewhere, and that's always good. And the word that we got from the Town Partnership last year was great recognition for this. Members, any comments or questions? John.
Aye, thanks for that report. I know looking at our inboxes, or some people didn't think it was such a great idea, and I think differently to that, but I would just want to know, when we say in paragraph 18, 81% and 85% of the spend, what does that mean in cash terms? What's actually been cashed in? Again, we could do simple arithmetic, but I think sometimes it gives a better flavour when we see actually how much cash is actually been spent. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Yeah, I'd agree. Dot.
Through yourself, Chair. On the Christmas campaign, there was £80,600 put out with cards. £65,322 of that has been redeemed, and there's a balance currently of £15,278. For the spring campaigns, it was 226,000, and the spend was 188,756. With a balance of 37,244 remaining.
I mean, that kind of hits a home, John.
Back in, I think the figures are pretty good. No perfect, but I mean, I think it's like everything else, develops over time. But I also think that if we're going to get that money back and redisperse it, as says in the recommendations, I think it's been well worthwhile. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Jim?
Yeah, just a couple of points there. John had picked up on it as well, but I think the important note for me is that 85% of that spent wasn't on luxurious goods, so to speak. It's been on food and clothing. And really encouraged by it, again, for the job that you did on that and the rest of the team on that, and then well to the forefront in Scotland as far as the gift card scheme went. And hopefully we can benefit and keep on top of it as developments take place and more advantages come to Ayrshire. And again, I'm encouraged by the recovery of the unspent stuff, both in the Christmas and spring campaigns.
Thanks, Jim. Tom?
Thanks, Chair. No, thanks, Doc, for that. And it has been a great initiative, this starting the gift card, big advantage to the residents in East Ayrshire and also the local businesses. And whilst it's good to see that these high percentages that have been spent, have we done any work to try and find out what the barriers are to people actually spending the remainder of it? I know we've given them 3 months extension, but have we tried to find out why they're not spending it? Because if there are barriers to prevent them, then I think we need to look at that and see if we can, break down these barriers or do some work to make sure that they actually can get the full value they used.
Yes, through yourself, Chair. Councillor Cook, yes, we've continued to put out messages encouraging people to use the cards, but also within those messages saying if you're having any difficulty, contact us, link with Tracy and the team, or even the local community worker to make sure that we're linking back to people. So we've put all those messages out. We are also working with MyConnects to ensure, that as we go forward, the scheme can improve and ways in which people can contact. They can contact MyConnects direct as well as come through us. But the main message is if there's a problem, whatever, come back to us and we'll help resolve it. So we've kept doing that.
No, thanks, Doc. I think it's important that we try and encourage as much spend as possible. We're giving them the money, so they need to actually have the means of using it. So no, thanks very much, Doc, and best wishes for your retirement.
Okay, thanks, Tom. No, I mean, I was able to help a couple of folk last week, direct them to the team, and they were able to sort them out. Anyone? Jim Roberts.
Thanks very much, Chair. Thanks, Doc. Good report and a good scheme as well. The only concern I've got is in regard to paragraph 26 of legal implications. What we're saying in that paragraph, MyConnects are the only closed loop operator in the UK who can support the development of local gift card schemes. So we're effectively saying there's nobody else in the market, that does this particular application. Does that not cause, a bit of room for concern in regard? It's a case of all the eggs in one basket. Yes, it is a good scheme, but we're effectively saying it's a bespoke scheme, a bespoke app. And I know we've got procurement onto it as well, but does it not provide some concerns for the future, bearing in mind it's only one company that can supply this application? Thanks, Chair.
No.
Through yourself, Chair. At this moment in time, they are the only company that operates the closed loop system, so that the money is retained within the local geographic area. But, you know, as schemes develop and others may come on board, I think that's why we will work closely with procurement to make sure that the arrangements as we go forward, if there are other options. But we're also linking closely with the Scottish Towns Partnership, who are also with MyConnects and taking forward the Scottish Government rollout of the gift cards. So we'll work closely with them to ensure that we've got the best options for East Ayrshire, and work closely with procurement to ensure that if there are other options in there for a closed loop system, then we'll certainly seek those out.
No, that's fine, Dot. I think, you know, if you know, the framework has other operators contained within that framework, then we could possibly get a better deal. I think that the main thing for me is having the options. Thanks for your response to it.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Okay, is that everyone else? Yeah, no, great scheme, and good to see it going forward. And the recommendations, paragraph 2, can we agree recommendations? Okay, that's great. And on to item 9, it's Dot again with the update on the Town Centre Regeneration Fund and Place-Based Investment Programme. Dot.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to update members on the work undertaken as part of the Town Centre Regeneration Fund and the 2021-22 Place-Based Investment Programme, details of which are in Appendix 1 and 2 of the reports. Paragraphs 3 to 7 of the report set out the background to both the Town Centre Fund and the Place-Based Fund, the funding both received from the Scottish Government and the arrangements that were in place for them. Paragraphs 8 to 12 provides more details on the Town Centre Regeneration Fund. With this funding, we have supported 17 community-led projects across East Ayrshire, and a full list is contained in Appendix 1. I don't plan to go through all of those, but I would just like to highlight that there has been a diverse range of projects supported with this funding, ranging from the large-scale projects such as the Corner in Darvel, the Castle in New Cumnock and St Marnock Square, to small environmental projects in Hurlford and communities across the Doon Valley. Paragraph 12 highlights that a total of 11 projects have been signed off. 6 are in the final stages of completion. However, I'd like to highlight one of the projects, New Mills Car Park, has been put on hold temporarily to allow further environmental tests to be carried out on the site by ARA, but it is hoped that this will be resumed shortly and the project completed for the community. Paragraphs 13 to 16 provides details of the place-based investment programmes being supported, and a full list is in Appendix 2 of the report. There are currently 24 community-led projects being supported, and these were approved by Cabinet last October. The Scottish Government funding conditions are set out in paragraph 14, and I can confirm that of the 24 projects supported, 2 have already been signed off. Work has started on several of the others, and contracts are in place for the projects or about to be finalised in the next couple of days. I would like to highlight that paragraph 15 and 16 of the report, unfortunately Lochdoon Caravan and Camping Park, the committee have been unable to progress their project this year and made the difficult decision to decline the funding awarded in October. However, they intend to submit a new application and the new round for 22-23, and officers have been liaising with the group to support them in this. Through delegated authority, previously agreed by Cabinet, the funding awarded to the Lochdoon Caravan and Camping Park has been reallocated, and it will be used to carry out refurbishment work on the former Book Cycle building in Cumnock to allow it to reopen as a community-run men's shed. Contracts are in place and there's no risk of us losing the place-based funding. The legal and financial implications are set out in paragraphs 17 to 18 of the report. We're required to submit irregular progress reports to the Scottish Government, and it's proposed that the Deputy Chief Executive, in consultation with Chief Financial Officers continues to have delegated authority to ensure a full spend against the project funding that has been awarded and report thereafter to Cabinet. There are no quality issues arising from the reports, and in paragraph 33 it just outlines that there's a risk if there are any delays in delivering the projects that funding may have to be returned to Scottish Government. Chair, recommendations of this report are set out in paragraph 2, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Dot. Mentioned the declarations earlier. I'm just now realising in terms of centre stage, I'm in the advisory board, so I better declare an interest there. Jim?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And similar to yourself, I think it should be noted, although it's non-financial for me, I'm a trustee of the newly developed men's share in Cumnock. Just going on for that as well, I'm seeing the difference already that this funding is making out in the communities, and especially around about Cumnock Business Association with the shop front scheme for the small businesses there. It should make a massive difference to the appearance of town centres as well, so delighted with that going forward.
Yeah, there's a number of projects there, you know, and hopefully get some of these over the line. Just one of the wee question I've got, in terms of the Foregate, the closure of the demolition of the multi-storey is not going to impact on some of these projects at all.
In terms of the work that's been carried out at the Foregate, then the work has been in the public realm space linked to the bus station and the shops that are on the other side. So there shouldn't be any detrimental effect on what we've done here. And a member of the team works closely with the businesses there and linking with ARA over the developments that are taking place on the multi-storey.
That's great. Okay.
Neil McGee.
Neil?
Thanks, Chair. I'm just looking for some more information in Lochdoon, and just while I'm on the subject, I'd like to extend my condolences to the family of the young man that died recently. Just some clarity on the reasoning for it. It wasn't financial, it was due to the group's inability to act on it. Could you give me?
Thanks very much, Neil. Yeah, Dot.
Yeah, it was actually the costs were becoming higher for the work that they had originally hoped to do, and the quotes for it. So it then became the costs of the porta cabins and what they required went up significantly, and they felt that it would be best to put in a fresh application, recognising the cost, you know, in terms of the market costs for the equipment, and it would allow them to do some additional work as well, which is why they decided it would be best to decline the funding and allow them to put in a more fuller application.
Chair, if I can, just could that not been accommodated this time round, or does it need to go through? I understand it might be better with a new process, but when I look at some of the grants awarded to other places, and I'm sure they're all valid, but at a time when we're trying to develop Lochdoon, it seems a real stall and possibly a worry that it doesn't continue. So just a query on the urgency behind it. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Neil. Bob's can maybe answer this one.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Councillor McGee, for that question. Dot explained it well there. The reality of this was there was a significant increase in add-ons. This funding was for completed projects, Councillor, and the 50,000 would now given us a completed project. We looked initially, Dot and the team looked initially to work with the group to see if we could phase it and put in different phases. That wasn't appropriate and didn't meet the criteria relating to the funding. Therefore, in discussion with the group and local members, it was agreed that we would ask the group, or the group agreed through their own committee, their own group, to come back under phase 2 to submit a full application that would meet the full needs of the toilet and the facility they're looking for up there, Councillor. So we believe that's the right way. Fundamentally, the thing was that the first 50,000 that we thought would install the toilet block wasn't enough and wouldn't have completed the project, therefore didn't meet that criteria. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Bob. Is that okay, Neil? You happy with that?
Sorry, somebody's trying to phone me. Yes, that's much more helpful. Thank you. All right.
You better, we can hear them actually, Neil. You better, in case it's private. Okay. Okay, and then maybe just, you know, and kind of serious mode, just, I don't know if you heard, Neil, but in terms of the tragedy at the weekend, maybe just to formally record, you know, it was our thoughts with the family of the young, I think it was a kayaker that was involved in it. Fiona.
Thanks, Dougie. It's just to say that I'm really pleased with the Hurlford Parklet project. I think it really enhances the aesthetic appearance of the Hurlford Cross area, and it's also helped alleviate parking issues there. And I think that was one of the aspirations we had, to try and alleviate that. And certainly Sustrans have been very helpful with that. So thanks very much to everyone involved in that. It's a big improvement.
Thanks very much for that, Fiona. Claire.
Thanks very much, Chair. It's I see the railway clock gets a mention. There's been a lot of complaints about the railway clock recently. It says here that the minor repair work has been carried out to restart the clock. So has the clock actually restarted? Because last time I looked it was wrong. And also it's improvements in the surrounding area. What kind of improvements are we expecting to see? And could we possibly help by powder coating the bins in John Finney Street, because they look terrible when we're all sat in traffic? Thank you very much.
I think that there's an issue beyond that. I think in terms of other bins, I think we've got far too many bins. I know, you know, in the town centre, and it's just they're looking a wee bit worn and past their sell by there a wee bit. But no.
In terms of the clock, the repair, there was some complications initially with the repair. It was repaired and it was on time, but I've spoken to colleagues and they're working with ARA to get it restarted, but it was repaired. And the funding was really just used to tidy up the planting area and secure because of the way the slope, and to do a bit more security there on that. But colleagues are working on getting it restarted.
Okay, members, and just maybe a wee mention to the set stairs at Command Academy getting done. That's good to see a wee bit extra money come in. That's, I think, it due to finish when?
I'm hoping in the next couple of days. I was hoping for today I would be able to say they are complete, but they're just doing some final work, and I think they'll make a real difference. And we've had positive comments back just about how safe people feel the stairs are, as well as that they've improved. So I think that's good. So the next couple of days, Chair.
Thanks very much. No, that's great news. Okay, is that everyone? Okay, we'll just go to recommendations. Can we agree the recommendations? Fine. And now on to Keep Scotland Beautiful. And Lisa.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. The purpose of this report is to see.
Maybe Lisa, a wee bit volume.
I've got the volume right up this time. I wondered if I was going to have issues. Is that any better? Is that any better? Is that okay?
I think Rob's trying to see what he can do. There's a magician at the back. Try again, Lisa.
Is that any better?
That's a bit better, yeah. That's quite a bit.
Okay, I'll talk loudly again. The purpose of this report is to seek approval from Cabinet for Housing Services to enter into a negotiated contract with Keep Scotland Beautiful. Recommendations are set out at paragraph 2 of the report. Paragraphs 3 and 4 details the background, and members will note the tenant satisfaction survey carried out in 2020 and a recent rent setting consultation told us that one of our tenants' top priorities was to see environmental improvements made to their communities. Paragraphs 5 to 13 provide further information about Keep Scotland Beautiful and the proposed work. They're a charitable organisation whose vision is for a clean, green, sustainable Scotland, aligning to our own clean, green and vibrant work streams. The proposed partnership will see selected housing estates across East Ayrshire graded by a team of their expert assessors and scored in line with a new environmental excellence scheme. The scheme includes assessment against the Keep Scotland Beautiful National Award for Environmental Excellence, as well as street and open space assessments and tenants' perception surveys. Through the assessments, we wish to establish a baseline position of standards across communities, which will inform the work of the new environmental team and area housing teams. Members, I would highlight that these assessments are for internal use only and are not intended to be used as a means to compare standards across communities. The primary function of these assessments will be to recognise and celebrate safe and vibrant neighbourhoods. Following site visits, inspections and desktop assessments, Keep Scotland Beautiful assessors will provide housing and communities with a detailed report telling us how our organisation is performing environmentally right now, and will provide recommendations for improvement, as well as highlighting what we're already doing well. Following the initial inspections, our staff and communities will commence our own inspection regime to assess all communities in East Ayrshire, which will feed into a clear action plan for each community. Keep Scotland Beautiful will then return following a 2-year period to revisit their inspections and to track progress. Paragraph 12 highlights that Keep Scotland Beautiful were the only responder to a public interest notice issued via Public Contract Scotland, informing the decision not to proceed to a full tender. Paragraphs 14 to 19 note any implications arising from this work, and members will note that the contract value is £23,070 to be met from within existing budgets. The proposals complements the community plan and associated transformation strategy, and directly supports our net zero ambitions with read across the Council's climate change strategy. That concludes the report, Chair, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Lisa. Straightforward report. Members, any kind of questions or comments there? Tom Cook.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, I fully agree that, the importance of our open spaces and, making sure that they're up to standard. The question is, though, why do we feel it necessary to go outside to get this accreditation or evaluation? Could we not use our own resources to do the baselining, going forward, and perhaps even use, teams from tenants and residents to Federation, involve them to actually do some of the assessment. It's just a question. 23,000. It's not a huge amount of money, but I just wonder if there might be another way of using it.
Thanks, Tom. Lisa.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, Chair. Thanks very much for that question, Councillor Cook. So in terms of what Keep Scotland Beautiful bring to the table, we feel that it's value for money, and then the plan would be, as you've stated, to involve tenants and residents to roll that out across Scotland. So the proposal would be that Keep Scotland Beautiful will help us identify a percentage of our communal blocks to essentially test this method, and then thereafter we'll take the assessment framework ourselves and roll that out across our communities in conjunction with our tenants and residents.
No, that's fine. Thanks, Lisa. I understand. Yeah, that's good.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, can we go to recommendations? Can we agree? Okay, that's great. And now go to Craig Fulton and the community asset transfer. Craig.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to provide Cabinet with recommendations on 2 properties within the village of Catrin. The background to the paper is indicated in sections 3 through to 5. Members have noted that there's 58 approved asset transfers to date. Consideration is required in terms of the Catrin Games Hall. Initially, the Catrin Games Hall was agreed as a management agreement to Catrin Community Trust. Work with Catrin Community Trust continued to help an individual group of volunteers become Catrin Games Hall SCIO. The management agreement changed to Catrin Games Hall SCIO and was extended through COVID. Now the charitable organisation have submitted their full detailed application, which has been successfully assessed, and Cabinet are asked to approve a 10-year lease of the facility for £1,000 per rent per annum for the rent. The second property is the Brown Institute. This is currently a management agreement with Catrin Community Trust. The building itself requires significant upgrade, and Vibrant Communities are working with multiple organisations within Catrin for a full consideration of not just the Brown building, but for what the village needs for its amenities and facilities itself. East Ayrshire Leisure, along with Catherine Community Trust, Catherine Community Council, and the Catherine Action Plan Group are all working towards a consultation event which should let the full community input into the plans for the village. It is recommended to the Cabinet to approve a one-year extension of the management agreement through to the 31st of March 2023. The legal implications are set out in sections 7 and 8. In terms of financial implications, there is a saving of £7,000 a year for the council for the Catherine Games Hall, and there's an ask for the £7,000 for the Catherine Community Trust management agreement, which will be drawn down by East Ayrshire Leisure through existing arrangements. There's no equality impact assessment or human resource implications, and happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Craig. Any questions out there? Claire Maitland.
It's actually perhaps I should have declared a non-financial interest with Leisure Trust and other members.
Okay, maybe other Leisure Trust members want to declare an interest there.
Stuart doesn't think that's necessary.
No, not significant enough. Okay. Go to any questions now. Or comments. Oh, quite surprised. Nobody. Okay, or maybe I'm no. Can we move to the recommendations?
Yeah.
Neil.
Sorry, Chair, I'm betwixt between the day. That it was the police trying to contact me, so sorry about that bit of robbery. Just to comment that I'm really pleased that the A.M. Brown Institute is in discussion. I know it's a difficult one, it's a listed building and it's got major issues, but I think it was always the right building for Catherine, for community use and activity. And I certainly have my fingers crossed that that goes ahead successfully. Thanks.
Thanks, Neil. Anyone else in our comments? Okay, can we agree recommendations? Okay, great. And item 12 is the development plan scheme in 2022. David, I'll deal with this one. David.
Yes, Chair, thank you. The purpose of this report is to present to Cabinet and seek approval for the publication of the development plan scheme for 2022, and this will set out the Council's timetable for preparing its local development plan. Members will note in paragraphs 2 to 4 that the development plan scheme has been presented to Cabinet on an annual basis, the last one being approved on the 20th of January 2021. On the 16th of March 2022, Cabinet approved the Council's response to consultation on local development planning regulations and guidance. Once the Scottish Government enact these regulations, the development plan scheme will require to reflect these new guidance and legislation that will be set out. Since the approval of the development plan scheme in 2021, a significant amount of work has been undertaken in the preparation of LDP2, and as members will be aware, that will be considered at Council tomorrow. Over the past year, the plan has been drafted and amended to take account of the draft NPF4, which was published in November 2021. Paragraph 6 sets out the extensive surveys and reports undertaken along with the key agency group and local community organisations in preparation of LDP2. The LDP2 Member Officers Working Group has continued to meet on a regular basis to deliberate parts of the proposed plan as they've been prepared throughout the course of 2021 and early into 2022. To date, the Members Officer Working Group has met approximately 30 times since it was established. Paragraphs 8 and 9 set out the work carried out in terms of placemaking, supplementary and non-statutory guidance. While the preparation of LDP2 continues to be progressed under the current planning legislation in force, the Scottish Government published a post-Act work programme and draft transitional arrangements which now require a proposed local development plan to be at a consultation stage by June 2022, having updated the proposed plan to amend and align with the draft NPF4. Paragraph 9, Table 1, sets out the detailed work programme for 2022 as we progress through the year and details the key tasks within each quarter from the LDP2 2 being approved by the council tomorrow, if considered favourably, through to neighbour notification of the affected neighbours of the opportunity sites, to publishing the plan and ultimately examination by the reporter. Members will recall an indicative Ayrshire regional strategy was considered and approved by Cabinet on the 18th of September 2020. During the course of 2022, work will commence with the preparation of the final strategy for Ayrshire and will involve further engagement and more detailed focus on delivery. This work will commence once draft statutory guidance by the Scottish Government on regional spatial strategies has been published, which is due later this year. This guidance will be crucial for the informing of the Local Development Plan 3, and therefore approval of the final regional spatial strategy will be sought in 2023. Paragraph 12 sets out the LDP3, which is going to be a 10-year plan period, will be prepared in accordance with the new Planning Act, and the target is that this will need to be in place within 5 years of NPF 4 being adopted, and therefore it is likely that work on preparing LDP3 will commence soon after the adoption of LDP2. The Council will set out a proposed timetable for LDP3 as an interim development plan scheme once the regulations and guidance have been finalised. Paragraphs 13 and 14 confirms that the views of the public should be sought on the content of the participation statement element of the development plan scheme. Subject to Cabinet approval, it's proposed that a participation statement be posted on the Council's website and advertised with comments invited within a 2-week period. Should this consultation result in significant changes to the development plan scheme being required, it will be brought back to a future Cabinet for approval. Otherwise, we seek delegated authority to progress with this. Following engagement on the participation statement, the adopted development plan scheme will be published in both the Kilmarnock Standard and the Cumnock Chronicle and placed on the Council's website, with 2 copies of the documents placed within the public libraries. Paragraphs 19 to 21 sets out the financial and risk implications. I would highlight that we are currently within budget at present, but would highlight that we may have additional expenditure incurred to support the development and implementation of the 3 Ayrshire growth deal projects, which have yet to start. The key risk contained within the timetable set out in the development plan scheme arises from the delay within the plan making progress to the June 22 deadline. And this is obviously something that we'll highlight further in the presentation for full council tomorrow. And mitigation, the LDP2 process will be carefully managed and workloads prioritised accordingly. Chair, the recommendations are set out in paragraph 2, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, David. Any questions for David? There'll be quite a bit of discussion tomorrow, but on matters not. Okay, can we agree recommendations? That's great. Okay, and now on to open space strategies and place efficiency assessments consultation. Again, David.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the purpose of the report is to present to Cabinet the proposed response to Scottish Government's open space strategies and place efficiency assessments consultation, and to seek authority to submit this response as detailed within Appendix 1 to the Scottish Government as East Ayrshire Council's formal response to the consultation. The Planning Scotland Act introduced new duties on the planning authorities to prepare and publish an open space strategy and to assess the sufficiency of play opportunities in their area for children. The Act outlines the purpose of open place strategies and place efficiency assessments and gives Scottish ministers powers to prepare regulations concerning a range of detailed aspects around their content and preparation and engagement requirements. This consultation paper discusses the proposed provision and seeks views on both the sets of draft regulations. The open space strategy must contain an audit of existing open space provision, an assessment of current and future requirements, and any other matter which the planning authority consider appropriate. East Ayrshire Leisure Trust undertook an open space provision assessment and has made a full review of the current and future requirements of council-owned and maintained land within the with the development planning and regeneration team also carrying out a similar task for spaces not in ownership of the council as part of the Local Development Plan 2 process. So the council are therefore already meeting many of the proposed provisions of the proposed open space regulations. In terms of place efficiency assessment, the Act sets out the requirements that planning authorities must assess the sufficiency of play opportunities in its area for children in preparing the evidence report for their local development plan. The Act requires that Scottish ministers must make regulations about the form and content of the assessment, such persons who must be consulted in relation to assessment, and the publication of the assessment. This assessment includes a statements covering the aspects in the quality, quantity and accessibility of play opportunities for the totality of the local authority, in essence covering all private and public areas. As reported to Cabinet on the 19th of January under the paper titled Play Park Investment Plan, a condition report was carried out in September 2021 to assess the overall condition of each council-owned and maintained play park within East Ayrshire. As members will be aware, the Council does not currently assess play opportunities within East Ayrshire, which are not council-owned or maintained. However, as part of LDP2, process a record of where these spaces are and the requirements of each of the play equipment will be collected. And this will help inform the future place efficiency assessment within when the new regulations come into force. In summary, the proposals in the consultation paper are generally considered appropriate and promote a 10-year review of public open space audits and aligns with the Green Infrastructure and Local Development Plan, although they do add new and costly responsibilities on the Council as detailed within the report. Once the regulations are approved, a further report will be provided to Cabinet to set out how the regulations will be implemented along with the resource provision. It is recommended that the response as detailed in Appendix 1 should be approved as East Ayrshire Council's formal response to the consultation and thereafter be submitted to the Scottish Government. Chair, the recommendations are set out in paragraph 2 and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, David. Any questions for David on this one? No, that's quite straightforward. Okay, can we agree recommendations? Oh, Jim, right, yeah.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. I've been having IT problems. Hopefully that's been sorted out now. I think it's a good paper. I think what we do as a local authority, I don't know what other members think about this, but any time we put a play park in, it's normally, in my interpretation of it would be, it's geared at very young children. Maybe that needs to be expanded a wee bit, you know, not just taking in very young children, but maybe up to the age of 12, 13 or something like that. Purely just a comment, but if you want to get a response on that, David, I'm fine.
Through you, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Roberts, for that question. Yeah, in paragraph 22 of the report, we do highlight that in response in question 14 rather, we do, you know, there is an assessment there that has to consider the types of age groups that, you know, would be, you know, needing to use the equipment. So, yeah, that will be part of our overall assessment. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Okay. That's everyone. Oh, Tom, sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It's a kind of similar question just from the Councillor Roberts there, just about all ability equipment for disabled people. You know, I think we tend to do it, but the private developers tend just to put in straightforward equipment, and I wonder if that's going to be part of the assessment.
Yeah, David. Yeah, well, we will do that through. Thanks, Councillor Cook, for the question. We will be undertaking that review, and obviously that will identify where there's kind of overall gaps. So there will be a kind of joint discussions with you know, Blair and his team on this and how we undertake that assessment and to make sure that we cover all the kind of areas, so that we do have effectively a register moving forward of all the equipment status within the district area, because obviously you've heard previously at Cabinet, you know, the condition and where work was targeted towards the council owned, but we obviously have to, we don't have that current opportunity with private owned equipment. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, David. Okay, I don't see any other hands up. Can we go to recommendations? Agree the recommendations? Fine. Craig, waiting patiently. Report in item 14, outcome of review of large-scale grants.
Thanks, Chair. Members will recall this was discussed and agreed that we'd undertake this review last year, March of last year, when we agreed the 21-22 allocation for the organisations that were in receipt of large-scale grants. I think the first thing we did have to just recognise is that one size doesn't fit all in relation to this, and every organisation is in quite a different place. The Officer Working Group sought to ensure that whatever proposals did come forward sat well with each of those organisations in terms of legal compliance, financial impact, but also for us in terms of best value and procurement regulations, so it had to fit all of those different criteria. The Officer Working Group clearly had to consider the impact of COVID as they were going through this process as well, and probably for the two organisations noted at paragraph 5 in relation to Kilmarnock Leisure Trust, the Galleon, and the Cumnock Leisure Trust visions. Cabinet agreed in 16th of June 2022 a hardship funding plan to support the Galleon through to 23-24, with similar conversations ongoing with visions round about that as well. So because of that, those particular organisations were out with the scope of the review of the working group. The remaining 8 organisations, those conversations, discussions took place with each of them just to ensure we could put something in place that allowed us to deliver what we wanted to in terms of service delivery, but also sat well with them in terms of that future sustainability and the funding for them as an organisation going forward. Probably worth just noting at this point, Chair, that the IJB last week considered the proposals in respect of CAB, Carer Centre, Women's Aid, Victim Support and Advocacy. All of those proposals were approved by the IJB, but they're detailed again here in this report for Cabinet's information. While responsibility for managing and funding those contracts sits with the IJB, the contract has to be awarded through Council, which is why they come to Cabinet as well. Members will be aware in terms of the Citizens Advice Bureau that they've had to relocate as a consequence of the multi-storey car park future demolition. They are now in temporary accommodation in King Street. Clearly their priority for the last year and going forward were round about getting a proper home for the future. And clearly that's where their focus has been lying. So the ability for them to enter into the detailed discussions round about future negotiated contracts, etc., has been a bit challenging. And as a consequence, it suggested that the grant funding should be maintained for CAB for another year as we head into 2022-23. For East Ayrshire Carer Centre, the initial conversations we've had with those groups identified just in terms of the financial position of that group, that a negotiated contract would have an adverse impact for them in terms of their VAT position, and clearly that would have a financial impact in terms of their ability to continue to deliver services at the current level. And again, because of that, it's proposed that grant funding arrangements remain in place for the Carer Centre. In terms of other organisations, and the recognition of the financial pressures being experienced across the board in line with the Fair Work agenda, it is proposed that a 2% inflationary uplift in all of the contract awards be put in place to each of those 8 organisations. As I said at the start, the 5 that are managed through the IJB, that 2% uplift was agreed last week for all of them as well. Table at paragraph 9 details the organisations that are in scope, the recommendation in terms of the new contractual arrangements and what the 2022-23 funding level would be, taking account of that financial uplift as well. Cabinet approval of these new arrangements and the funding allocations outlined in this table will see 6 organisations moving to alternative contractual arrangements, which would essentially take them out of the grants process, with responsibility for governance, contractual oversight, contract management, etc. Now sitting with the relevant service departments in line with established contract monitoring arrangements and the standing orders relating to contracts. And probably the most important thing to note here is that these new arrangements provide longer term financial security and sustainability for the organisations that were within the scope of the review. Clearly, the procurement part of this is quite complex, Chair. Paragraphs 14 and 15 sort of summarise where we are round about that, with colleagues from Legal and Procurement having been supportive and represented on the Officer Working Group, and they absolutely recognise in terms of how we take this forward that this does comply with the relevant sort of procurement arrangements, but it also delivers best value for us as an organisation and a good, robust way forward for the organisations as well. Paragraph 17, again, just confirms what I mentioned at the start in terms of the IJB and the process there, that it was agreed by the IJB previously. The funding's all in place for it, and now this is just about the contract award. The recommendations are noted at paragraph 2, Chair, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much. I take paragraph 5, the date there, that's a typo. I know we're looking at future sustainability, but we're not able to, I'll make a crystal ball to say that the cabinet, the general, is that 21?
Yes.
Just also that. Okay. Just another, well, just in terms of the East Ayrshire Citizens Advice Bureau, I know there's always been concerns at the cutbacks in neighbouring authorities on the Citizens Advice Bureau service that we are kind of effectively subsidising, you know, that shortfall in availability.
Certainly not aware of that being the case, Chair. Clearly, the Citizens Advice Bureau locally provides services to the local area, the local people within the local communities. Clearly, they have that outreach facility as well in terms of going out into some of our more sort of rural communities too. And I'm certainly not aware through any of the conversations we've had with our CAB representatives locally that we're seeing anything that would constitute people from other areas coming to access our services. So no, I'm certainly not aware of that.
Thanks for that, Craig. Anyone else? Jim Roberts first, then Tom Cook.
Thanks very much, Chair. Thanks for your report, Craig. Can I just ask you a question in terms of the Coalfield Community Transport? I mean, obviously you mentioned, you know, an uplift, you know, to costs, but bearing in mind Coalfield Community Transport organisations similar to that, you know, they're going to be hit pretty hard with fuel uplift costs, bearing in mind the price of crude just now. Do you think that uplift would successfully cater for the fuel uplift costs that the organisations such as the Coalfield Community Transport are going to pay?
Through you, Chair. No, I don't think it would be anything other than honest to say that a 2% uplift would not certainly be sufficient to deal with our all of the inflationary pressures that they face in there, not least of which will be the fuel costs. I think all the public sector are currently just doing their own caution roundabout what the additional fuel costs, whether that be for vehicles or for heating the buildings, etc., will look like. I think we're all going to see significant pressures on our budgets going forward. So absolutely, these organisations will feel that same pressure, I suspect, and it will just be absolutely within the gift's not the right word, but the responsibility of each of those individual organisations to try and manage their budgets accordingly within the financial envelope that they have. But no, I don't think that the 2% inflationary uplift is certainly not going to deal with the significant additional fuel costs that are coming to any of these organisations.
No, thanks for that, Craig. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Tom Cook.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just to give some clarity to the point you raised about the CAB as, you know, advisor to the board, that is one of the things they are very concerned about, is making sure that they're only effectively spending their money on East Ayrshire residents, sometimes to the point where they get slightly depressed because people come from other areas to the doorstep and they really have to turn them away. You know, it's not the best thing, but you know, they are adamant that they will only use their East Ayrshire funding for East Ayrshire residents. They did get some funding from Poppy Scotland to cover the whole of Ayrshire for veterans, and so that, you know, they did deal with people from out with East Ayrshire for that, but that's the only part of it.
Thanks, Tom. That's quite helpful. Yeah. Neil McGee.
Thanks again, Chair, and apologies again. Just with Jim raising the Coalfield Transport, dawned on me that I'm on the board and I should have declared an interest, so I'm doing it now. Apologies for the late. It's one of the days.
Problem, Neil. Okay, that's been noted. Okay, members, can we agree to the recommendations? Okay, and now we need to move exclusion of press and public.
I can just give the sake to make sure that the press